have a good man at home. He's everything to me right now. But it still doesn't change the fact that, like, there's still all these, like, feelings in being around Ed.
So, despite treating her like trash, there's something about Ed that Liz just can't resist. I know, crazy. Like, even though she has a boyfriend now, it seems that being in close proximity to Ed over the last few days has kind of blurred the lines of their breakup.
Liz, like, I don't know, she's kind of scandalous, if you ask me. Jayson saw where you guys were acting, they'd be done. It did seem like you were going for one more time for old time's sake type of thing.
Could I have closed it? Absolutely.
Is that just fake bravado? Or could there actually be something to it? Well, before we dive into what has or hasn't happened, let's rewind to the start. So, you know it's been a crazy tell-all when Ed and Liz are one of the least controversial people there, as countless marriages crash and burn around them, as people are freaking out and losing their minds. The main thing that Ed and Liz are perhaps guilty of is still maybe being in love with each other. So when we catch up with them at the mansion, it's the last day of filming, and Ed is sat there saying what very much sounds like the beginnings of a sexist rant.
When we come home at night and we're like, honey, what's wrong? Well, this happened. Then we want to solve it. But that's not our job. They just want us to listen. Yeah. Okay, I obviously didn't learn that.
For a second there, I really wasn't sure how that was going to end. Now, I know, suspend your disbelief for a second. Ed really wants us to believe he's aware of his mistakes during his time with Liz. He's, in a roundabout, indirect way, putting his hands up and admitting fault, admitting that he didn't listen to Liz. But you've got to question why he's even saying this. Is this some kind of ploy to try and show Liz that he's changed, he's a new man? What he's saying are things that Liz wished he'd said or done years ago. So with Ed saying things like this, and with Liz flaunting her new relationship in his face, yet still being oddly touchy-feely with him, is it any surprise that all the rest of the cast are confused? Everyone's watching them with hawk eyes to see if there's anything still there between them.
Who are you?
I know. So good.
Because Ed never listens.
I never did.
It's very easy to say than to do.
How is this the easiest but saddest breakup ever for me?
Easiest? Yes. Saddest? Liz, please. What's wrong with this woman? You should be waking up every morning, jumping up for joy, thanking God that you're not with Ed. But keep in mind, like, what these guys are living through right now isn't natural. Like, everyone has been forced into this gigantic mansion, right? They've all been plied with booze. She's living with her ex, and slowly, bit by bit, old feelings, old habits are beginning to bubble over and come back up to the surface. It's deliberately, geniusly, some might say, a very intense environment. It makes for great entertainment and TV, but it's left Liz very conflicted.
Liz, like, I don't know, she's kind of scandalous, if you ask me. One night, Jason's like throwing over her shoulder, and the next night she's like holding hands with Ed and like...
Now, we've seen Ed and Liz with our own eyes fall back into almost couple-like behaviour since they've been in this house. And the fact that Liz's current boyfriend, Jayson, only stayed one night means that he hasn't been there to witness just how close the exes now seem to have become. So, with it now being the final night at the mansion, time for everyone to say goodbye, Liz is determined to draw a line under this. She wants to show that she's not actually as conflicted as we might think.
Ed told me he still wants to be a part of my life, remain friends, but I don't want to see Ed again. I want no more contact with Ed.
Now, Liz claims that while she knows that she needs to cut Ed out of her life for good, that doesn't stop it from hurting like hell. It's very difficult knowing that I'll never see him again, she says. And as Liz is packing her stuff into her car, Ed comes out to say a final goodbye. And I think it's a sign of just how uncomfortable he is, that he doesn't seem capable of having a genuine conversation with her without resorting to humour, without inserting a self-deprecating and quite creepy joke.
Being a part of my life, and I don't want to say goodbye because I'm going to be stalking you.
Imagine for a second, if you will, Ed in the bushes, stalking you like some kind of terrifying garden gnome. Yeah, no thank you. That's the stuff of nightmares. Now, maybe the reason why Ed has resorted to this kind of humour is because this is such a deeply uncomfortable conversation for him, because he's not used to confronting his own emotions like this. But, luckily for him, Liz can read between the lines. In fact, she finds it quite endearing and sweet.
You're really funny when I'm not dating you.
I know, but basically, this sucks. So.
The pair hug and then Liz drives off. Ed is left standing there watching on like a sad puppy. Now, of course, the question is, has Ed really learnt as much from this relationship as he seems to think he has? Or is this all for show? Something that we know he's very good at. Something we know he loves to milk as much as he can. You see, when he heads back into the mansion, he gets all of these sympathy hugs from the rest of the cast.
There's a lot of closure that I needed, and I think I got it, but it was still pretty hard seeing somebody that you love, knowing that you're not going to be with him anymore.
Now that I'm prepared to give him. That would be hard, even for someone as narcissistic as him. Now, while Ed and Liz both seemed to understand exactly where they stood as they said their goodbyes, when we're then shown bonus footage that had been shot over the entire week of filming but hadn't been aired, it immediately becomes obvious just how much of a journey, just how difficult this entire experience has been for Liz.
My agreement with my new man was, I'm leaving this in the past, and when we went to bed, we said, I'm now moving on with my future. So
Liz had a goal in mind. She had a promise to keep to Jayson. She vowed to do whatever she needed to end this chapter with Ed. But we soon learn, in order for her to move forward, she first needed to dredge up the past. And in some of the unseen footage from earlier on in the week, we see just how difficult Ed was intent to make that for her. You see, knowing full well what he was doing, Ed brought out an old Polaroid photo of him and Liz to try and stir up some old memories. I was mad and I tried to throw this away, he says, but fate, or a pharmacist in this case, wouldn't let me get rid of it.
Let me see.
That was kind of a dick move. And I went back the next day to pick up my prescription, and they're like, hey, you forgot something. That's our engagement.
Now, as he's telling this story, Ed's voice starts to break, and Liz starts to cry. It's clearly a very powerful, very emotive memory. A photo of them at their happiest on the day of their engagement. But I think it's important to point out, Liz doesn't appear to be looking at this photo with nostalgia, like she wants to go back. It looks more like she's just cherishing a memory. And Ed pops whatever bubble she's in and brings her back down to reality with this.
I know if I married you, I would have destroyed you. I just know that. And I'd rather part as friends than never talk to you again.
but this is what I want. This is how I want to leave here.
This is such a classic Ed move, isn't it? Look at him trying to suggest that he broke up with her to save her. I would have destroyed you, he says. What a noble man he must be. I mean, come on, who's buying this shit? If he'd really broken up with her for her sake, he would have done it in a lot less traumatic way. Let's not get it twisted. Ed ended things with Liz because Ed wanted to. Sorry, he can't now pretend he's a saint.
Sorry for being an ass.
I hate you so much.
Ed is bien.
So despite being an arsehole, despite everything he put her through, Liz still can't wipe that smile off her face. Now, is that love, or does she just feel good about parting on good friendly terms? Well, after the tears are shed, Liz is feeling a bit fragile. So she takes herself into the kitchen. In fact, into the kitchen so that she can make Ed a taco. Now, Ashley follows her, and as she's preparing Ed's taco, she begins to open up to Ashley, and it becomes apparent that Liz is still feeling very confused about her feelings towards Ed.
I have a good man at home. He's everything to me right now. But it still doesn't change the fact that, like, there's still all these, like, feelings in being around Ed.
Okay, so giving Liz the benefit of the doubt here, again, bear with me, but I think there's an argument to be made that she was in love with Ed when he broke things off. I mean, she thought that they were going to get married. It's understandable that those feelings don't just completely disappear. But, and here's the big question, if she is still in love with Ed, if she hasn't yet got over it, is what she's doing with Jayson fair? Shouldn't she focus on healing, working on herself, before bouncing into yet another relationship? Remember, that is something that Liz has a track history of doing, bouncing around from one toxic, serious relationship to another. She admitted that herself. Now, when Ashley outright asks her, "Do you still love Ed?" she denies it. But I think it's very telling that Ashley isn't convinced. She's concerned that Liz will run back into Ed's arms. So she feels the need to remind Liz how f***ed up her breakup with Ed was.
When that mother did that again, I was like, she better not go back, because this is what he keeps doing. He keeps making you look stupid.
Yes, Ashley, say it how it really is. This is exactly what Liz needs to hear. She needs someone to shake her out of whatever spell Ed seems to have on her. Ed has disrespected her, he's humiliated her, and he's made her look stupid on TV. He's treated her with total disrespect, and I don't know who needs to hear this, but listen closely, because someone who really loves you would never do that. But, sadly, it doesn't seem like this message has yet sunk in for Liz, because when we're shown yet more unseen footage, this time from day 2, we join Patrick and Ed speaking backstage.
I just feel like you guys are way too close. I mean, especially if I was Jayson.
Yeah.
Jayson saw where you guys are acting, they'd be done.
Patrick questions Ed and Liz's intentions, having just seen them together on that first night, acting way too close. Patrick seems uncomfortable, especially knowing that Liz has a boyfriend. Now, when he says they were way too close, he also goes on to give a bit more clarity as to what that actually means. And it turns out it must have been really bad. You see, Patrick says it felt like they were giving off
One more time for old time's sake.
vibes. And the concerning thing is, instead of holding his hands up and saying nothing happened, Ed instead says this.
I know me, and I know Liz's weaknesses. Could I have done it? Absolutely. But she would have felt like
So while they didn't sleep with each other, Ed is under the impression that he could have easily taken Liz to bed. Now, is this Ed just talking a big game? Is he trying to act like a big man in front of Patrick? Or is that actually facts? Well, even though at that precise moment Liz happens to walk in and affectionately hug Ed, Patrick still isn't quite convinced. He's still taking everything that Ed's saying with a large grain of salt.
And Ed tells me that Liz said that, like, Ed was better in bed or something like that. You know, it's coming from Ed, which, you know, he probably made that up. Regardless of like how tough he tries to act, that would be brutal for anyone to go through, to see your ex like with a boyfriend in person, they're kissing, he's carrying her to the bedroom.
No, Patrick, no, sorry. It's very difficult to have any sympathy for Ed when he's brought this all on himself. Now, when we join them all again later on that evening back at the mansion, Ed tries to make a gesture to help him and Liz move on as friends. He hands his phone to her helplessly and asks her to unblock herself. Now, Ed claims he doesn't know how to unblock someone. Slightly strange, considering he blocked her in the first place, but this act serves its intended purpose. It again allows the pair to start talking and giggling with each other, reliving the good times.
Can you unblock yourself? Because I don't know how. And I blocked your phone, so can you unblock me?
You blocked me. Hold on, blocked.
Now, it's late at night, Liz is in her pyjamas getting ready for bed, they've clearly both been drinking, and they're both in good spirits. Like, it's easy to see how this has reminded Liz of a time when she actually loved him. In fact, she goes as far as to admit to the camera crew that when Ed first walked in, there was a little bit of tension. But, she says, that tension isn't there anymore. It's almost like old times. It's causing them both to reflect on what they had.
At one point tonight, he told me that he knew that he missed his chance. Yeah, this is the version I fell in love with, right? This.
Look, here's the thing, right? I genuinely think that in Liz's mind, I think she feels that her and Ed are at a point where they can both say things like that, and she thinks it won't get misconstrued as flirting. But from what Ed was saying to Patrick and everyone else has been talking about, I think she's vastly, wildly mistaken. Everyone is confused. Everyone does see that as flirting, Ed included. But Liz clearly doesn't understand this. In fact, her position hasn't changed.
I'm not in love with him anymore. That doesn't mean that I still don't have a lot of love for him. And I'm very grateful for the 4 days that we're here in the house together.
She has love for him, and she's grateful for this experience, but for her, this is closure. In a weird way, this, living under the same roof as him, has given her everything that she was lacking. Everything that the incredibly tumultuous, traumatic way that Ed split up with her didn't allow her to have. And for all his bravado and big chat, it seems like Ed has also been reflecting. This breakup has affected him.
I think I'm fixable. It's gonna take a while.
Look, the fact that Ed can acknowledge that there's something wrong with him, something that might need work to fix, is, dare I say it, progress. But words are cheap, and this is something that we've heard him say in the past. But regardless, Liz is determined to hold on to this version of Ed. A version she maintains she knows better than anyone.
I will go to my grave defending the fact that you are a good person. Obviously, of course, I still love you. There's a difference of love now, but...
Now, I'm not sure I'd go as far as to say he's a good person, but I will say Ed's time in the mansion has shown a whole different side to him. The truth is, we all knew that without Ed, Liz would thrive. But as for Ed, well, where he goes from here isn't really clear. He's now approaching his twilight years, he's completely alone, he's burnt bridges with friends and family, even his own daughter, because of everything that's happened. And most importantly, he has a hell of a lot of self-reflection and self-work to do if he ever wants a successful relationship. But Liz, on the other hand, well, she knows exactly what she wants.
I know who I want to spend my time with, and I'm totally okay closing the chapter with Ed.
So while there definitely was a will they won't they type situation for a little while there, Ed and Liz now both seem to have closure. And surprisingly, given all the other drama with all the other couples in the house, it feels almost wrong to say, but they seem to be in a lot better position than many of the others. I just hope for Liz's sake that all of the laughing, cuddling, hand-holding, tear-wiping and emotions they had to spill along the way to figure it out won't piss Jayson off too much.
I just feel like you guys are way too close. I mean, especially if I was Jayson.
Yeah.
Jayson saw where you guys are acting, they'd be done.